everyone, and thanks for coming again. Today we are going to be doing some work on some PHP packages to make a little bit of a change. We're not going to be building any new ones. We're going to be looking at refactoring, updating, upgrading, seeing if we can kind of see what changes we can do to them, what we can do from a quality perspective for long-term support. So here is obviously my GitHub. I have got 110 repositories. A lot of them I actively maintain, which keeps me extremely busy. Obviously, Laravel Transporter is one of my newest packages. I did create a new one the other day. Here we go, Key Factory. This one I find really useful. And the idea of it is you will generate a random key, which might look a little bit, I'll pop it in this bit here. So it would look like that. It's very similar to how Stripe do their product keys. It's basically just a way to do that. And what I do is, there we go, down here. I've created a trait called hasKey, and I just add those to eloquent models, and it makes it really nice, really easy, great, useful to do. All right, that isn't what I'm working on right now because that is, it's only 3 days old. It doesn't really need upgrading or updating. But what we're going to be looking at, I've got a small selection of packages which I could do with upgrading and refactoring some of them. So we have got this one, which I released 9 months ago, which hasn't been touched for 8 months. I think it was touched to upgrade the for PHP 8 support back in October. It could probably do with a little bit of love here. This is a very simple URL builder. You can either build it up programmatically or you can pass a string. Hey, thanks for coming. Someone said hello in chat. Yeah, or you could pass a string and it turns it into an object and you can access all the different parts of the URI. It's not it's not one of those kind of PSR compliant packages because it doesn't follow the PSR for the URI interface. It's just something that I found useful because the inbuilt parse URL for PHP is a bit ropey at best. We've also got my PHP auth strategies package, which hey Benjamin, no, it's okay. So this one's more for this is a kind of a meta package, I suppose, which I use in my PHP SDK package to pull in what authentication strategy you want to use, so it's a little bit easier to get going. And all it does really, it correctly formats different ways and a flexible way for you to set auth tokens, headers within a HTTP client. Then we have got my HTTP Slim package, which is the main goal is to adhere to PSR 18, 17, and 7. And it's just a really good wrapper package, which allows interoperability between your PSR 7 implementation and your PSR 18 and 17 implementations. Hey, Tom, thanks for coming, buddy. So here, this is what we're doing. This is what we can do here. We can go, okay, so here's my HTTP client. I want to build it, and I want to pass through our client, our PSR 17 request factory, and our stream factory. You pass all of those things in, and you get this HTTP client, and away you go, basically. You can perform GET requests, post, put, patch, and delete requests. I could probably extend that as time goes on. It's a very, very simple package. I've written a tutorial on this as well, of how I built it and why I built it. If anyone's ever interested, I can share that link. And then obviously there's PHP SDK, which is kind of like a SDK framework, I suppose. The idea of it is it allows you to create these really simple to use SDKs. So people can, Acme, in this case, Acme init, and then start calling the resources. People working with you on something. Yeah, PSRs they're useful, very useful. Code style is failing. Ooh, that's not like me. Shame on me. So the basic concept is it's got PSR 17 and PSR 7. It's also PSR 18 compatible because it uses PHP, this package under the hood. This package here, the PHP SDK, actually uses all of the others. So all you need to do is create a new builder, create your base URI from a string, build up your HTTP client as a transport, pass in your authentication strategy that you're going to use, and passing in a PSR 11 container so that all of your resources can be added into the container quite nicely and easily. Then we can just start forwarding these calls through to the response, to the method on the resource there. This is probably the library that I'm going to change the most today. This is the one that's having a lot more done under the hood. These other ones are going to have minor upgrades, and this last one is a major upgrade. So what we'll do is we will start with the URI builder, I believe would be a good place to start. So if I come over to URI builder here, I am already on a feature upgrade. I've updated the composer.json to be PHP 8 onwards. So now I can start to do some upgrades. Let's just update all of this. Run this quickly. Ooh. Enable inspection. Oh. Okay. Is that going to do anything? We shall see. Okay, so let's do a quick composer update. Let's see what's going on with life. Right, so we've updated Rove security advisories, some development dependencies, and that's about it. That's all we've needed, which is good because the other things, these are what we're going to upgrade later on. Oh, parameter bag. That is a good point. Do I need to upgrade parameter bag? Because if so, I may as well upgrade this all at the same time. That's not been upgraded since for 8 months either. So we may as well, while we are here, let's just make this nice and big. Here we go. Right, so here's me. Let's just clone that one. Parameter bag was something that I created quite a while ago as well. So we don't need a terminal anymore. Let's close him down. And let's just make sure our windows are all looking fancy together. Here we go. So this package was something that I created. It's like an array on steroids, basically. The idea is that you just kind of pass these parameters in for configuration, and it allows you to access them quickly and easily. Basically, it's nothing too crazy. It's a very early implementation of what I wanted to do with managing config, but it's actually quite useful. So what I would do, I will also open this one. So I've not opened it on this machine yet because this Mac is still relatively new. So we need to look for a parameter bag. And these are all the projects I'm currently working on at the minute. I'm actually working on a sparsely Ray PSR 3 logger, which I thought would be quite fun. I've not managed to get it done yet because I don't know how to test Ray in that sense, but definitely interesting. Definitely going to be fun to try. All right, let's just close that because I don't need that. Okay, Windows gone a little bit winky wonky there. Have I got too many of these open? All right, we'll come back to that. Let's close that one and that one. Let's just close all of them other than the one I'm going to work on. Right, PHP Storm. Ooh, projects, parameter bag. This is what I want. So here we go. So the status, where are we? We are up to date. This is old because it's still in a master branch instead of a main branch. So what we will do is we will git check out a new feature called upgrade, and we will just, before I install anything, let's go through what options we've got in here already. Right, to start with, that should be a capital because I'm picky. This needs to come up the top. That needs a trailing slash. Apply dev needs to be a little bit further down. So here's require dev. It's got literally no dependencies. This is a very simple library just for working with arrays. And we'll just install. Yep, run the install and let's go. Composer executable, go. Fail to install packages. Okay, well, in that case, we will just say there. Run log. Ooh. Tokenizer, bloody blah. Okay, so we're going to want 9.5. We're going to be wanting that and that. Now we can install, hopefully. No, still having issues. Okay, so PHP stand code sniffer and PHP unit. We will do those in a bit. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove that. I'm probably going to pull in pest for the new version. Get rid of that composer log. And let's go to install. Ooh, okay, so it is complaining. So let's remove composer lock. Now that's finished. Perfect. Let's make sure it's all okay. Yep, all good, all good. Now this doesn't actually need much. What we'll do, we'll composer require pest, not plugin Laravel, pest with all dependencies. We're going to convert all of the tests to pest as well. So if we go to vendor bin pest it. No, I've already started your repo. I wish it would remember that from your command line. It would be so much easier, wouldn't it? Right, so all I need to do in here is, will this still run my tests? Vendor bin pest. Yes. How's my test coverage? No code coverage driver available. Well, in that case, I better turn it on. There we go. 100% test coverage so far. That is great. So I've switched to using pest now. Test example test already exists. Let me reload this from this. Here we go. Example test. So we're going to probably move everything over into here. So let's refactor this example test and rename this to param bag test. And what we'll do is we will step through all of the tests that we do have so we can go through. Right, so zoom in, because the idea here is to make sure we've always got good test coverage. I'm pretty sure in pest I can create a function down here. Well, pest specific to your project. You don't want to repeat in every file. Global functions. I can create a global function here. So I could do create parameter ag. So we take in an array of parameters default to that. That is going to return a parameter bag. Simplify that. And we will return new parameter bag where the parameters are parameters. Simple and clean, right? Still looking good, still looking good, nothing's broken. Right, that should be auto-loaded into this now. So, can it be created basically? Can I create one easily? So, very simple. It can create a new parameter bag. Can this class be instantiated, or am I going to have issues with instantiation? People say you shouldn't test constructors, but I don't know. Sometimes I need to. So I'll just call this object. I'll call it object for now because it's going to be much nicer. So we should already have one. So I should be able to go parameter bag. It means that I can now do expect. Is this? What's going on? Okay, I'm going to delete that. We're going to rerun init. I'll create a new thing. Reload that all from disk. We're going to delete that one. Here we go. So if we come back, oh wait, I did not want to do that. We wanted to delete that. Safe delete that example test. This expect. Zoom in now. So we are expecting our object to be an instance of bag. We'll do because we're going to need it a few times. We'll simplify that one, and means we can now be created. Can get parameters from parameter bag, so it can retrieve parameters. Next test. Ooh. Trying to package things that aren't really possible. So, sorry, just catching up on chat there. Tom's chatting as usual, giving some pretty good advice. What's my criteria for a new package? If I need it more than once, I create a package. If I need it, 3 times, I should have made it a package already. That's kind of my my go-to. So it can retrieve items from the parameter bag. Actually, I probably need to make one before this of it and create a new parameter bag with default parameters. So, we want to eager load some parameters when we're creating this parameter bag, for example. So, we'll call this object and we'll say create parameter bag, and we're going to say parameters we want to use by default are going to be foo and bar, something really simple. And then we can do something like expect value of object all finding time for open source is a struggle for everyone. I think, Ben, it's crazy. To have a count of, we're going to say the count should be 1 at this point, and we're going to say to equal the expected thing is going to be foo. We're actually testing a lot of things in this very simple test here. So what we can also do up here, we're expecting that to be that. I really need to dive deeper into pest, to be honest. I'm pretty sure you can do a lot more than what I'm doing with pest. To be empty. So for this one, we are creating a new parameter bag. We're expecting it to be, to create a new one and for it to have one item already in it, which is equal to that. So risky test, that's fine, because we skipped writing that one so we could carry on with the one above. Let's zoom out. So it can retrieve items from a parameter bag. Let's do that. So we can build foo bar. We can expect that. We can expect to get a bar out again. So if we just copy this, because we're going to be doing the exact same thing here. Yeah, writing packages, sometimes it does become part of your job when you know you're going to need it. If you're writing it already, sometimes writing it as a package can be beneficial. So what we want to do is we want to expect the value of object get. The key is foo to equal cool. So we're basically all we're testing here is we can create it, we can add things to it, we can get things that we've added, can get all parameters from a bag. Yeah, I've already tested that. Probably wrote excess tests here. It can set items on a bag. Okay, so let's create that new test. So it can set items on a parameter bag. So we will start with an empty bag. Our object is create a parameter bag, and then we can do something like expect value object all to be empty, to have count 0, and we could also, just because, to equal, this is adding extra expectations, I suppose. This isn't needed. I'm expecting it to be an empty array straight away. That might be a little bit excessive, but covering all my bases. It's going to be empty, shouldn't have anything in it, it should be an empty array. Make sure it's not null or anything silly like that. So then I can just do something like object set. I want to set key of foo to the value of r, like I did before. So now I can almost just grab that, and we can test that that has been added. We can also, expect value of object all to have a count 1 and equal expected hopefully that'll pass. Yep, lots of passes. Good. So we can add something. Great. Can we remove something from the parameter bag though? That's the next test. So what we want is we want to start with basically this. We want to say that it can remove items from the parameter bag. Because what's the point of having a parameter bag if you're not going to empty it? So now we can say object remove when we want to remove the key of foo. So at this point, we should expect our object all to have a count of 0, to be empty, and to equal an empty array. We should have completely emptied out at this point, and we have. Perfect. So get all items from the attribute bag. Okay, we've already done that. That's a not needed test. We can build an attribute bag from a string. So this was one of the things that I wanted to do with this was, passing in parameters from a URL string. So it can build a parameter bag from a string. So let's take a specific case like foo bar test true. There we go. This is exactly what we want to do. So foo equals bar and test equals true. What you might expect to see in a URI. Then we're going to create a new bag from the string, and that is going to take string as attributes. Attributes we want to pass in from that string, and you can pass a custom delimiter. The default from string will pull from the ampersand sign. But if this is comma separated, you just pass in a comma. If you want to pass anything else in, you do it the way you need to with that. So now we can say we've got not bag, we can call it object to stay consistent in our test. So here's our object. So we can say expect object all to have a count of 2 at this point. And to what else do we want? So we want a count of 2. To be true. So we want this to be true. So we've got all. No, we don't want that. We'll do. I really need to look at how we can build this up. Have a count of 2 and to equal expected is going to be this, and then that is going to have foo equals bar and test equals true. So foo as bar and test as true. Now I'm pretty sure I've got a setting somewhere where I can set things as true can come through not as a string value, but that might be on another package, in which case I'll look at that later. Okay, perfect. So we can do that. Equals blah, 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 blah. Yeah, we don't really need to test all the minute details. We know we can get items. So we can set an array as a value on the bag. So basically we can set embedded attributes. So it can set something other than a string as a value. Basically, we want to make sure we can get, we can add a Boolean value and get a Boolean value back out. So we say object is, let's create a parameter bag where we want the parameters to be like test and true. And then we want to expect value of object get test to be a Boolean, also to equal be true. So we're getting all of that nicely. That's good news. That's how we want it. Can we do anything else? Let's say, okay, so let's just remove that. So object remove. Let's go back to a clean state where the key is test. And now let's just make sure that object all empty. And if that doesn't fail, then we want to object set where the key is test again. And the value is going to be framework is test. Really simple. Let's make sure this is still passing. So now we can just do expecting object all have a count where the count is 1 again, and we want that to equal test framework is test. Really simple, nothing too crazy, but a nice little test to make sure we can add all of these things. So again, that one has now been done, and that is all of the tests. That is all we needed. So we can now parameter bag test, we can delete that. We can run our coverage. We're now only on 35%, so 93%. So line 35, we are not covering. Let's go see what's going on line 35. Can we see? We need to see if something has. Okay, so it can check if an item is check if an item is in the parameter bag. So we'll create a new one. We'll say object equals create parameter bag. Expect the value of object has the key test to be false. And then we can say object set. The key is test. Value is test. And we can now expect this to be true. Now we're good. Right, so that is our test suite converted over to using PHP 8 and using pestPHP instead. So param bag test, we're just going to rename this. Now we've deleted the old one, so let's rename that. Param bag test, perfect. Close down our tests. Now within here, this is where we can start to focus in here. So what do we want to do? Well, to start with, we are on PHP 8. Can we factor this? We got anything we can do? No, not really. Okay, so let's just go like this and do it manually. It's going to be protected. We can go protected array. Done. And what we'll do while we're refactoring is make sure we're still running our tests. We are all good still. Check to see if our bag, fix some typos, string key bool key exists. That can't be improved upon, unfortunately. Get. Okay, this is going to return a mixed result because we don't know what's going to be put in there. And we're just going to return that. That is fine. Nothing we can do around that. Set. This is obviously mixed. It's going to return itself. So once you've set something, you're returning the bag itself, and it will override the current value. Removing an item and setting. Not a lot we can do there. Getting all items from the bag, creating a new bag from a string. So mapping to an associated array, we can explode from the delimiter the attributes passed in. Then we're going to run over a function and we're going to grab the parts where we're exploding from the equals, getting the key value from that, setting a limit to 2, returning some crazy magic that I created once upon a time. And we've got some stuff down here for the code coverage where we're ignoring it because I wasn't sure how to test. There's not a lot we can really do on this either. I think that, to me, is okay. So I could probably, set the items there and set the callback there. Not much more I could do there. And again, with this, there's not really a lot I can do with that. So that is upgraded in my eyes. So you add all of that, commit, package upgrades, and moving to pestPHP for testing. There's one thing we could do because beforehand we had PHP CS going on. I'm not really that bothered about PHP CS anymore. It's not as useful. So I can remove that. Let's go to git ignore. Have we got? So we name this. Let's make sure that is added into here. For now, we'll remove it. Oh, delete anyway. Scrutinizer, we're not really using Scrutinizer much, but we'll keep it in there. Suppose we could add SARM. So composer require dev Vimeo SARM. Let's install SARM, and we can vendor in SARM init. And we've got one error somewhere, but we'll have a look at that. And then we could probably do something like show info equals true. What issues have we got? One error. Item has no provided type on parameter bag line 107. 107 here. Item. Okay, so that's mixed. And it's going to return an array. Let's run it again. Good. Perfect. Now let's make sure tests still pass. We are still good. So to me, we are okay. Let's go to GitHub, make sure that our workflows are all fine. We're running on PHP 8 only now. We're preferring stable for Windows and Ubuntu. Checking out the code, you get the dependencies. Setting up PHP, we don't need half of this stuff, but we keep it. PHP unit coverage, no, we don't need that. What we want is vendor bin test. So you can add again. How do I get PHP Storm to show the structure under the files tree? Let me show the structure. That just happened for me. I actually don't know that there, Jack. If someone else can answer this question, please feel free. I'm not a PHP Storm master. If I'm honest. We're just going to push that and we can go make sure that that passes. Yeah, I think it was committed, unfortunately. I did try to delete it, but it's not going to kill anything. It's not going to make me cry too much. Was it? No, it wasn't already in there. So let's come over to here and let's feature upgrade. No, I did delete it as well, so it should be fine. So actions, package upgrades, and moving to PHP pest. Let's wait for those to run. These are a nice, easy one to do. Yeah, PHP Storm does go wacky sometimes, doesn't it? It kind of has a mind of its own a lot. What I'm going to do, I'm going to make sure that you see my code, not my face, because my face is not important. My code is at this point. So we're passing on Ubuntu when we're passing on Windows. We are good. We are good. So what we can do, we can create a new pull request. And we're going to swap that into there. We're going to create a pull request. That will again run all of that stuff. GPC. I like to go this approach. Pending. Let's see if Scrutinizer actually picks this up, because I've had kind of on and off experience with Scrutinizer, if I'm completely honest. What we'll do is we're going to open up the URI builder in a new window, because that is our next step. So tests are all looking okay so far. Let's give it a manual refresh, see where we're getting to. Okay, details. How are we doing? Installing dependencies. Loads of stuff's passing. We're looking good. Details on Scrutinizer. We are in progress. If we go home on this one, code quality is pretty good. There's one issue found somewhere. Okay, no build config. No insights. Complexities, it's all looking good. Complaining about this, maybe. That's not the end of the world. I can live with that. Inspections, feature upgrade. How is it doing? Compiling PHP runtime. Okay, so that's definitely never going to pass on that. So let's have a look. So was there something that I needed to set in Scrutinizer? Yes. Here. 8.0. That is one thing. Yeah, let's leave it at that. So git add commit moving Scrutinizer to PHP 8 and let's push. Again, another commit. And while that's pushing, I'm not going to watch that. I'm not in the mood of babysitting these things. Parameter bag. Where are my inspections? Where are they? Here we are. Can I just come to this and can I cancel it? What do these buttons do? I've not. Oh, okay. Go back. By me. Yeah, I know it was by me. Right. Well, that's going to pass and do stuff anyway. So what I'm going to do is the parameter bag back here. We've got another upgrade coming. Here we go. We've got more stuff coming through. We've added another commit. So I'm just going to merge this because I know it works. Cool. Delete that branch. Away with ye. Come to a new release. We are now going to release a new major version because it's a PHP 8 only support. So we need to bump that major version. I've stopped using V in front of it. And what we're going to do is version 2 release. And we are dropping support for anything lower than PHP 8.0. Swapping test framework to pestPHP. Something really simple. Let's just publish that. That's done. So parameter bag is now, if I click on here, this should be auto updated. Yep. So there's 2. These take a while. These badges do take a while, but they will get there eventually. That's parameter bag done. Now to look at the URI builder. So what I can do to start with, URI builder, let's delete that composer lock file. Let's say we want anything 2.0 onwards, PHP 8. Let's, fill this in the way that we do nowadays, where we add a role and we add a home page and we add stuff to this part. Consistency across packages. Simple URI builder in PHP that is slightly opinionated. So, can we just come here a minute and just go move everything from vendor? So, do we need var dumper? Probably not. Probably don't want that. We probably don't want half of this. I'm going to keep it at that. And all of these scripts I'm just going to delete. And grab this auto load. Get under here. And underneath here, I'm going to say first stable true. Config. And we're going to say optimize autoloader to be true as well. Something really simple. And then let's just install user the executable and say go. All packages have been installed, which means all of these tests are going to fail. But for now, I can just do a composer require pestPHP pestDev with all dependencies. And then I can vendor bin pest. If I come over to here, let's just delete that. We can also come over, not really bothered about PHP stan. I never really got on with it. I preferred SARM, but we're going to delete all of the SARM stuff for now. Because I don't want it yet. PHP unit, we're going to delete that file. Scrutinizer, we are going to set that to 8 so we don't forget on the next round. We're pushing that up. And we're just going to run in it. So that is going to do most of the stuff for us. So in theory, we should be able to 93% coverage. That isn't bad, if I do say so myself. I could go through and start to update this. So let's grab this. Let's go to pest, and let's say URL is going to return a string. What we could probably do is we could say like null string URL. Let's zoom in so you can see what I'm doing now. So null string URL, and we're going to set that to null by default, and then we're just going to return URL, but if it's empty, we're going to return that. No, we're not. We're going to return it in double quotes because we've got quotes in there already. So it's always going to return a URL, PHP sand, go away, not interested. Clear that event log. Not useful. So we're going to have this URL function where we could pass one in, or we could just get the default one. So we're going to include a relationship, and the fields we want are relationship, ID, and name. Done. Clean, simple, JSON API style URI. Right, so now we can come over to the URI test there and the example test. And let's just start copying over some tests so that we are where we want to be. We don't have a massive amount, so it should be okay. So we can URI build. We know we can build it. So it can create a new instance of the URI builder. Again, constructor testing, not strictly required, but there we go. So the object is URI build. Done. Let's just simplify that. Go away, PHP stan. All right, here's our object, and we want to expect our object to be instance of URI. Yes. Simple, simple. Now test. Still the same. 93.2, 93.2. We've not changed. That's what we wanted. So it will create from a string. Perfect. Right. So now we can say it will create a new URI builder from a string. So all we need to do is say object equals URI from string where the URI is that method run. So we can also expect our object to be an instance of URI class. We're not going to jump too early in our tests there. So we can now just drop that one. Let's just run that again. Still 93.2, still looking good. That's what we wanted. So it can set the schema. So this is where we'll come here and we'll do something like function build. We're going to return a URI. And here we're just going to return URI build. I'm going to do much. It's just a helper function so that we don't have to keep doing that. We can just do build, shortcut it a little bit there. So this one's passing, that's fine. Our next one is, it can set the schema. Can set the URI scheme. So the object equals build is our new object. We can say expect value object scheme to be, let's have a look. By default, it should be a string. So let's go have a look. Scheme's always going to start as an empty string. So it's going to start as an empty string. That's making sure it's starting empty. So then we can say object add scheme, and we want the scheme to be HTTP. Then we can just run this again and just make sure that we're getting HTTP back. Nothing mind-bending there, I don't think. This one might have a few upgrades to it. Still on the same test coverage, which is looking fine. We'll fly through these tests. I won't hang about too much with these tests because I think they're going to be relatively obvious. So what we'll do is we'll just grab that, copy it. What I'm going to do, zoom out for this view a little bit more. And we're just going to quickly fly through. Host where do the same. So there's the host. Let's make sure that is all good. Good, looking good. Fly through. Let's go on to the path. Make sure we can set the path. Here's where the path is going to be something like test. Path. Make sure that runs. Failed. What's going wrong? Okay, when we get it back, it will have the slash on it. Yeah. So you set it, but it's always going to add the slash because it's part of the path. That's how paths work. So it will set the query. Next part. This is where we're diving into the parameter bag. So we don't have to test too much. Yeah, can I just remove? What can I do? How can I PHP stand path? Cancel that. Event log. Code snip. No, don't want that. PHP stan. No. How can I just go through and just disable all of this stuff? Because it's starting to really annoy me. It's just dumped loads of things in the log. Let's delete that. Go to our settings. Apply that. Cool. Let's see if that'll do it. Right. Oh, now code sniffer. No. Settings. Just stop logging it. I don't care if you're doing it in the background. So it will, I want to go, it will set the query funny spelling of function as usual, because I'm just flying through where possible. So we want to just build it and add a query straight away. So object equals build set add query, sorry, and this is where the query is going to be test equals test. This is where it's just add query under the hood. It's just going to create a parameter bag from a string. It's just not doing anything too crazy. No pop-up, done. Shoo. Right, so we've added the query. We've got the bag. We're expecting it to be, yeah, okay. I don't need to test that because I know it's going to be there. That's obvious. We want to make sure that the bag has include. Okay, that's testing something that's not important. So those tests were absolutely useless. So we're going to expect value of object query have a count 1 because we've just passed 1 in. And we're expecting that to equal test. Now let's run our test again. And we're failing. So assert count must be countable or iterable. So object, okay, the query all. There we go. And now we've dropped in that slightly. So what aren't we testing? We'll build up that afterwards, I think. We'll worry about building that up once we've converted the tests and we can work on code coverage. After we've converted the test, as long as it doesn't drop below 90%, I'm happy. So it will set the fragment, which is going to be very similar to setting paths and all of that stuff. So it will set the URI fragment. For those who don't know, fragment is the hash part of a URL. So like the ID, for example, fragment. So this should now be, I'm assuming he's going to add the hash, but we'll double check. So let's run it. Yes, we're good. So that's that very end bit, like the div ID, when you click to scroll to, that's the fragment. In JavaScript, they call it something different, but that is what it is. So it will fail to build from a string. Cool. So let's try that. Let's see how this is going to work. It will fail to build from a string. Ooh. Let's check in a function. So now we can just say something like object equals URI from string. Let's just kind of copy how we're doing it over here to see why this might fail. Obviously we're using PHP 8, so I want to make sure I follow PHP 8 as close as possible. One failed. Please ensure it's a valid URL. So that's probably too many slashes. It's going to throw a runtime exception. Yep, throws exception class runtime exception. Now we're passing again, looking good. And we'll just do it again. We can just say, okay, just passing in that port number is also going to make it fail. Picked 2 from string. There, URI is that. Jobs, off we go. 91.9. Wouldn't there be a throw more descriptors exceptions? Possibly. I think that's what I'll do when we refactor. That should probably be an invalid argument exception, if I'm honest. I went through this phase of like just throwing runtime exceptions because it was the easiest one to throw. Sounds really lazy, but it's true. So it'll convert it to a string. So let's go for the URL. Let's just let's grab all of this for now, and we'll convert it in situ. It will convert a URI builder object to a string. So you could cast it to a string, or you can call the toString method. I've created my own toString method on it, which is the same as a built-in toString. Right, so URI from string, wherever URI is URL. URI is URL. Sounds confusing, right? So why don't we start that up the top, and we'll say URL is that. We need it in a few places, so we're not constantly calling it. URL. 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 URL is a new URL. New, cool. That means I can just grab all of that and I can delete all of that, and that should mean I can delete, oh no, gradually. Add query params. Yeah, okay, so we're going to look at query params afterwards. That's fine. Okay, so something's complaining. Let's just remove this. Okay, so we're back up to it. So we could probably just say assert equals import that function. I'm not going to worry about turning all of these into the expectations right now. Because it's taken too long to convert them all. So I'll accept a PR for it if anyone's listening. If you want to submit a PR, feel free. Okay, so that is converting the URI builder to a string. So basically, we're building it, and we're just making sure that if we're casting it to a string, it equals what it originally did once we've built and converted it backwards. So it will let me build query params gradually. It will build query parameters. So basically, I can chain them is what I'm looking for here. I'm looking for a nice way to chain. So this is the URL I'm going to want. So this is where I can say the object equals from string. The URI is this object. I'm testing, and we want to make sure that the query parameters equal that. So we are expecting query parameters to have a count of 1 to equal that. Good. So we want to add another query parameter at that point. So we can say object add a query parameter, and we want the query parameter to have the key of foo and value of bar. Means we can run through this again. This time we're expecting 2, and we want test another foo. So we don't need to go much further than that, to be honest, because we've just proven that we can add more. So it will allow me to convert booleans to strings. So test equals 1. Okay, I'm not sure if this is actually going to work, but we'll see. It will convert booleans. What are we saying? It will convert booleans to strings. So if you pass through 1 in a URL, it should convert. So that's why you're passing 1 as a boolean to the word boolean. So object equals URI from string, where the URI is this. So as part of the test, we want to make sure that the query parameters for the object is that. So we are expecting the object query parameters first to have a count of 1 because we've passed 1 through, and also to equal that. And then we want to add another one where we're adding the convert to string as true. So this is where we're going to say object where the key is another, where the value okay, let's just do this my way. Key is another, value is false, and convert bool to string is true. And at that point, we're going to expect it all to come back like this. The value of object query params to have a count of 2 at this point, because we just added another one, and to equal Run. Done. Magical. Yeah, I don't think we need to do another one and another one and another one. But we do want to do the converting to a string to make sure it converts back correctly. So we can expect the value of object to string. To string is going to say encode true or false. To equal good. And we can just drop that. So we've got test is 1 and another is false. That should hopefully pass. It does. So we can now just remove that one again and throws an exception when sending unsupported query parameters. So like passing a class isn't going to work, for example. It throws an exception and an unsupported query parameter is passed. Hey, Catherine, thanks for coming. Long time no speak. I hope you're doing well up in Scotland. So expect exception. So again, this is something where I'm going to change this from a runtime exception probably to something like an invalid argument because it's a bit more descriptive. Typo detected on 233. 233. Thank you very much, Catherine. You, as usual, you're great typo police. You managed to do that with Gary when he was building his micro framework with emojis. So quite impressive. Can't believe you actually managed to spot typos using emojis. Attention to detail there is incredible. So URI from string where the URI is this. That's going to be fine. When we want to add query parameter, don't need to worry about adding that because we know that will pass. It's this that we know will fail. We know adding them will adding them by default will be fine. So we want our key to be that and our value to be that, a new anonymous class. This should throw an exception. I can delete that test. It will allow, it will URL encode if requested. URL encode me, so query params up here. It will encode the URI if requested. So basically, sometimes you want to encode it, sometimes you don't. The problem that I found with encoding URLs through the PHP's URL encode is it doesn't work very nicely with JSON API as well. Pestifying, yeah, I'm pestifying, and then I'm going to be upgrading once I've pestified. So we will be writing some more code soon. Here's our object. We're going to say, okay, so here's our URI. It's going to complain saying that I don't actually need those, which is good. There's our object. So now that we're going to expect the URI, when we're pushing it back to a string, we should be this. So expect the value of object to string to equal this. Nicey. Right, so now we can just do something like that again. And what we'll do is we're going to create encoded URL encode this, so equals. Okay, so we're kind of doing the exact same thing there, but we're going to pass through something else. So instead of query params, we're going to pass through the encoded, and when we're passing through to string, we're going to pass through the argument of encode, meaning that things will encode. We're going to convert it to an encoded URL, which is fine. Again, it will set the port if passed and won't if not. Okay, so basically just setting the port is what we're looking for there. Does PES support data provider? I believe it does. PHP, it's got something to do with data providers. Data sets. It uses something called data sets. Similar, but not the same. You can create shared data sets. I'm not 100% sure how comparable they are. But I've not actually used data providers in any of my tests yet, if I'm honest. Right, so it'll set the port if passed and won't if won't. Say it. Let's use a data set on it. We'll come back to setting a data set. Let me make sure my tests are passing before I refactor too much. So it will set the port if passed in. It is doing the same test in 2 rounds. It is doing the same test there. We will definitely look at what we can do with that one, I think. These tests are slowly being removed. So we can say object equals URI. I'm assuming I'm getting it from a string. Here's a URL string. The top. So the URI is a URL string. That's fine. And now we just want to say that the port is going to be null. So we're going to expect the object's port to be null. Expect value of object port to be null. This should hopefully pass. Yeah, I do have Twitch. I'm just not streaming on both. Something that I'm looking to potentially do if I can manage to keep up with it. Right, now let's create second object. So object 2 is going to be a URI from string, where the URI is one with a port on it. So this, in theory, should pull out the port. So expect value of object 2 port to be an integer. Should pull it out as an integer, and it should also equal 9,000. Over 9,000. There we go. So that test pretty much done. And then obviously when we pull it back, it should equal the same thing. So we're going to expect the value of 2 to string to equal at. It might turn it into an integer, but when we're turning it back, it should be a string because it's going to be in a URL. And that is all of our tests done. So I can now come back here, URI test, and I can refactor, safe delete, away with you. Let's delete that. Actually, no, let's rename that, make sure it's not going to be in our commit history. Sample test. Let's rename URI builder test. Let's run that. We're missing some coverage, but we're doing okay. So overall, this was relatively easy, right? Next step is let's look at refactoring the code. Let's see if there's anything in the code that could do with refactoring. Let's scroll all the way to the top first. This is slightly bigger than the last class. So we've got this schema, host, port, path, query, constructing, building. Half of this stuff I could probably pass into the constructor quite easily. So is there a way I can refactor it with PHP 8? Can I? No. I thought there's like a way you could refactor things and move it to like PHP 8 easily, but not knowing PHP Storm as well as I probably should. Have I checked Workbench? I have used Workbench, but I don't think it works on standard PHP projects yet. I bought it today. I've already ran it 4 times. It's that good. They have a task for Laravel projects, yeah. So what I can do is I can say private param. No, I'm not on PHP 8.1. Okay, so I can say, let's start with schema. So string scheme is that. Actually, that's a private constructor, so I can always pass it through there. That's fine. So I can now get rid of that. The host is also going to be the same. Private host. So I can delete the host. Nullable port. Is defaulting to null. And a nullable path. So here's a path. That's defaulting to null. Parameter bag. So parameter bag is the one that's passed in and not built. So parameter bag as the query means I can come over to here and we can say that the query is a new parameter bag. Means I can remove this, pull this up and drop that. And then all we need is the nullable fragment next, which I can also do here and say fragment PHP 8ify it. So there's a constructor, and obviously we don't return anything from this one. Context menu. Yeah, I really need to kind of up my PHP Storm game, if I'm honest. So here's a static build. Pure can be added. Okay, I'm sure it can. And this is going to be a URI. Query, new parameter bag. Aren't doc blocks and type properties a bit? They are a little bit redundant, if I'm honest, but I still like to do them. So build a new URI builder. Anything we need to do on here. So from a string, we're returning ourselves. We only ever pass a string in at this point. We can say build a new URI builder from a string. And this is going to throw a new invalid exception argument. Simplify that. So we're going to swap the runtime exception for this. Message URI failed to pass using pass URL. Please ensure is valid URL passed in URI. So there's that. Self build. When we are building, that will automatically pass through the parameter. We don't really want self, we want static build. If it's an array, so an exception, bloody blah, scheme. So we can say scheme is that. Add the host if it's provided, otherwise it's going to pass in null. If the port is passed in, let's see the port. Path is provided, pass through the path. It's all kind of really simple buildy stuff. I wouldn't pass your code review. I probably wouldn't, to be honest. Not gonna lie, I definitely wouldn't. You're probably way too strict for me. So the query for this is so if queries, what's this complaining about? Get that. Pass URL component, URL fragment. Basically, we have to re-get the fragment when we're passing the URL, which is a bit of a pain, but you know, if you need it, you need it. May as well cater for it. It's actually requested to cater for the fragment, so I had to create an extra one. Else pass. You know what? I think you're right, aren't you? No, wait, that's. So what Catherine is saying here is URL scheme question null means if URI scheme is null, pass null. I thought it was the other way around. If it's null, pass null, basically, otherwise pass itself. Null safe operator, that's what I'm looking for. Is it the null safe? No, it's not. That's not PHP. That came in PHP 7, didn't it? PHP 7 null coercing operator, I believe. Not passed. Replaces ternary operation in conjunction with, yeah, null coerce. So returns its first operand if it exists and is not null, otherwise it returns second. So yeah, that's kind of what I want. If that is set and isn't null, pass it, return it, otherwise return null. Yeah, I was right. Sorry. I got really confused. Don't confuse me like that, Catherine. It's been a long day. Okay, when we're returning the URL, adding the scheme, this could potentially throw a invalid argument exception, I believe. cannot set scheme to a null value. And we're going to say that this throws that and add schema. It can, yeah, I suppose it kind of is, because it is nullable, isn't it? So that is checking, is performing operations that aren't required, is what you're saying. I thought you meant I did it the other way around. You are absolutely right there, to be honest. I don't need to do it, so I won't. Actually, I didn't there. So I can set the scheme to a null value. This scheme is scheme, fine. Scheme, return scheme. So get the URI scheme, nothing crazy. Set the URI host. Returning itself, it could throw an invalid exception. Let's make sure we fix these. Can't set it to a null value. So if host is null, let's make sure we do it that way because that's how I prefer it. And we'll swap these around so it is matching. Null string host. And we'll default it to null, I think, or not. Yeah, we'll default it to null so it throws an exception if you don't pass anything in. How are we naming our comments? Get. We're saying we're getting something. So get the URI host. Is null slightly less performant than? Is it less performant? Yeah, only important if you're doing load. So yeah, I didn't think there's much of a performance difference, to be honest, which is why I didn't bother to change any of it. Yeah, basically. So sometimes it's, you know, nice to do these things, but other times it's not really needed. It's like, you know, if you start seeing performance issues, fair enough, add these micro checks. But I find is null a lot more readable personally. So set the URI port. This potentially throws an invalid argument exception. So this is going to return null or int. And this is get the URI port null int port again, null string, default to null, we're returning ourselves. Let's just fix out our ordering here. Default to null. We are setting the URI path. If it's null, we're not worrying about it. We're just saying it's path to. We're just going to return early. Otherwise, we're just going to do some substring magic quickly to make sure it's got a slash. Basically, nothing crazy. Null string. I prefer it that way around. I don't know about you. I prefer to say null then the type I'm returning instead of the type then null. Personal preference. Random tidbit of information. Or string query, and we can say set the URI query. Ooh, string starts with. That is a very good point there, Catherine. We can use path, or we can use string starts with. Yeah, I completely forgot about half of the new PHP 8 string functions. The string starts with, we can get the path, and if it starts with that, don't even need to wrap it, do we? So if a string starts with that, then we can set the path. Otherwise, we can just do path. Oh, much cleaner. So it's probably doing the same thing under the hood, but it looks nicer. And it's a lot more legible. I mean, if I go back, you got to understand substring and how it works. So that is a very good call there, Catherine. Thanks for that one. And then obviously the string ends with now as well. I always forget about the new string helper functions. Invalid argument there. Those single quotes because I don't even know why I did double quotes. And we would do message. Always use named parameters now for my stuff. Feel it's nicer. There's an invalid exception. Now you're just trying to change it. No, I'm going to keep it as string starts with. I want to check to see if it's been passed through that way. That's what I'll do. We'll keep it that way. From string to parameter bag attributes. So if we're adding a query, we want to say this query is a parameter bag from string. That's fine. That's all what I'm expecting to happen. Parameter bags is going to return itself. The URI query. Going to say that, and what we're going to say here is set the query or set a query param because you're setting one of many. So string, mixed, and bool. We can add mixed onto here, returning ourself, string, mixed, boolean, saying an invalid argument exception. Can we do something here as well? Message cannot set query parameter to get type value. Don't know if that'll work nicely, but self-static name of a class into type hints. That's a good question, Jack. So Jack's asked, now, which is more common standard, returning self-static name of a class and type hints? It depends. If it is a final class, return the name of the class. If it is, for example, here, I'm returning myself, I'm returning this class, which I'm building, I'm returning myself. If I am coming from a static function, that is when I return static. static is preferred. Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's down to your personal preference, I think, personally. So convert bool to string. If that's true and the value is a Boolean value, then we want to say that the value is either true or false. That's fine. So the query set key and value. So there is that. That is all set. That is all done. Query parameters. Get the URI. Query parameters. Query params. Sure can be added. I don't. PHP 8 attributes. I'm not 100% sure on yet. I'm not going to lie. I am not sure. Set the URI fragment. So here's a string for a fragment. Could be, if it's an empty string, just return, otherwise do this. And this is where we can do that starts with again, can't we? This fragment equals, if a string starts with haystack it starts with a hash, then we are doing it that way. Equal equals though. There we go. So there's that. User names. What names? What did I miss, Catherine? Sorry, have I missed something? I was in the middle of a brain spasm. Set the URI fragment using is empty on the string since you're using is null is bool. See, I've had mixed things going on with is empty on strings, so I tend not to do it on strings. Trust me, I was tempted. I like it that way. But I've had mixed things going on. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So I prefer not to when it comes to strings. So that's setting the URL fragment. Turn URI to string. Going to return the string. Just do this. Boxes to toString. Here's toString. Pure can be added. Not interested. We're going to throw any exceptions? No. Okay, so we can unwrap those curly braces and unwrap those ones. Unwrap those ones. Unwrapping. Empty. Blah de blah. Let's unwrap. And again, let's unwrap those. Implode. Separated there. Encoded. Do that, and then query parameter. Let's unwrap those. And the fragment, let's unwrap those. So that to me is reasonable. Does it use that if object note Evan? Ooh, okay, so 2 seconds. Oh, I actually had issues before with the haystack and needle setting names on inbuilt parameters. So I've had complaints with it from IDEs before. I mean, if it's going to work, I'm going to be happy because it really annoyed me that I couldn't do it on inbuilt stuff, but it looks like it does. Sweet. I'm going to go back and quickly change those. That's complaining about pure. Okay. I want to ignore pure things like that. Where's my haystack needle gone? So we can do this one here. We can say that the haystack is a path and that the needle is that. There we go. Haystack and needle. Yeah. Basically echo or cast it to a string. It'll work nicely. And I built this one, then added that one so that I could kind of control it nicely instead of anything else. I just wanted to proxy the built-in toString magic method to the one that I wanted to create here. I think if I now come here, I can go two failed. So things have failed. I expected those. Okay, so now we can come back to our tests. And URI build a test. Let's go all the way to the top because we know it's going to cause an issue. And we are looking for runtime exception. And we want to change these to invalid argument exception. Now, if we run it again, it should pass. Cool. So we've just dropped below that 90% now. So let's have a look. Line 113 to 114. Why are we failing around there? What could be causing that? Add scheme. So basically, null or string. Basically, if we want to do a passing null through one scheme. Okay, so it will throw an exception if null is passed to my scheme. Cool. This is probably where most of our stuff is going wrong. So this is going to say throws exception class is going to be invalid argument exception. And now we want to say object add scheme where the scheme is null. What's going wrong? What's going wrong here? Cool. Getting back up there. So if null is not acceptable, what? That is a good question. There was a reason why I allowed it last time. But you do have a good point. That should no longer be required. You've got a good point. Let me go through and clean some of those. So let's go through here. And so the only thing that can be null are port, path, and fragment. Port, path, and a fragment. Scheme, host. We don't want a host to be able to be null, so let's delete that. This might have been, which means the property can be public. It probably could be public, to be honest. There's a host. The port can be null. The path can be null. The query, can the query be null? From string. parameter bag. That won't work. Adding a query. We want that part to still allow null for the query because we want to catch that because parameter bag won't support null. That bit's fine. Query parameters, catching types that aren't supported. So basically, if it's an array or an object, it's not supported. I suppose there's also is callable. What other ones are there? Numeric array, directory, bool, countable, double executable, file, float. Float should be fine. Iterable, object, resource. Some of these should be fine. I mean, if you're passing a file, then it's gonna complain. But I don't know what things I want to specifically allow. Otherwise, I could flip it. Maybe I could be a bit more specific on this one. Okay, so if it isn't an array, or if it isn't Boolean value, or if it isn't string. So basically, we want to allow strings, Booleans, arrays. Is numeric. That will allow ints and floats, right? So I want to allow numbers, strings, Boolean values, and arrays. That's it, really. Anything other than that is not really a query parameter. If it's not an array, I suppose that's a good shout. I need to keep you about more often, Catherine. It's not an array. Get type value for string array int float Boolean. That was it. That should be it. Make sure we are not failing at this point. We're still failing. Ooh. Cannot set query parameter to Boolean. Okay, so it's spelling it out like that. Cool. Cool. Query params, fragment. Right, all of that bit's fine now, which means we can come back to our test. And 163 to 164. These are some lines that we need to look at why we're not getting any coverage. So 163 to 164. What could be going wrong here? Is Scala. What is Scala one? Int, float, string, or bool? Okay. Arrays and objects. Now I'm going to keep to how it is. Stop giving me ideas. You give me too many ideas, Catherine. Right, 163 to 164. 163 and 164. So when we're adding a port, we can't pass in null, basically. But we want it to be nullable, which is fine. So it cannot set the port to null, basically. We want to ensure that. Otherwise, it will fail. So object equals build. This is going to say throws an exception class of invalid argument exception. Then the object is going to say add port where don't want to pass anything. So that should fix that. Again, need to get used to this keyboard. There we go. So now just 192. What's going on 192? Path. So, okay, so it will not add a path if nothing is passed to add path. Basically, what we're trying to say there is let's build the object. And when we build, we want the URI build. Okay, we're going to do it different. We're not going to build it this time. We're going to say from string URI from string, and the string we're going to get is just going to be, we're just going to use that part of the URL for now. The URI is going to be this. I want a path. That bit's fine. There's our URI. So we are expecting the value of the string to equal that. That shouldn't fail. That should be good. Okay, it failed for some reason. Okay, slash. Get rid of that slash. Right, so that's not changing much. But now what we want to do is object add path. Don't add anything. And we want this to be exactly the same and to have not changed, basically. Yeah, that's it. So the 225 to 226, 225 and 226, that is null queries, basically. So cannot set the query to null. Build, add query. Should do that. And now 297. 297, what are we going to test here? 297. Okay, so if the basically the same as this, but for the fragment. I'm going to group these together because they're very similar. And in this one, it will not add a fragment if nothing is passed to add fragment. So from string to string, add fragment. And then the fragment null. Okay, so that's failing. That shouldn't fail. Yeah. Yeah, I've used it. I need to set it up properly to use pest. So add fragment. So I'm adding fragment, but I'm manually passing through null. It's failing, which I expected. Must be of type string null given. Cool. So so let's say we're just going to pass it empty because that's how we wanted it to behave. And there's that percentage there. Cool. Yeah, there is a plugin. It wasn't working for me for some reason. I don't know why it wasn't working. It just decided to not like me. And that is all of that. So now we could do something like a composer, require dev, psalm, render, bin, psalm, init. Show info, scan the files. Right, see what you can fix. Undefined array key host or array fragment, not too bothered. Undefined cannot safely with new static as its constructor might change in child classes. Okay, yep, no, I get that. Doc blockers encrypt. And static, no. I'm going to change some of that. Okay, so minor changes. Don't need a runtime exception anymore. And we can just make this final to stop some of those issues. And 3 issues. Possibly undefined, and mismatched doc return type. Line 34. And a new URI. Cool. 2 issues. That's all okay with me. Vendor bin pest coverage. Make sure it's still good, and we are good. So now we can say add that. Commit. Package upgrades and move into pestPHP for testing. Exactly what we did for the last one. But before we do that, let's make sure our GitHub workflow is only testing PHP 8. Let's push that. Let's make sure that's all going up. Okay. So we refactor that test to use data sets. Let's have a look at data sets. So dataset emails, it has email not to be empty with function. I don't like that. I'm not going to lie, I actually don't like that. The with, I get. I'm not seeing the advantage to data sets for something as simple as this package. I think maybe for something like a larger application, I could see the advantage. Ooh, my wife is messaging me asking if I want to eat dinner. Yes, please. I've been going for 2 hours. I should probably tune off soon because I still have to eat. Right. I think 2 packages in 2 hours for upgrades and everything. So basically a dataset runs the test for each item in the dataset. So in the case of the same. Okay. I definitely think it's something that I'd like to look at, but right now I think I've been going for 2 hours. I've managed to upgrade 2 packages of those 2, which leaves me a very small, simple one and 2 larger ones to worry about for my next streams. So the URI builder, let's go check the action is going to pass. Ooh. 7.4. Well, of course it's not going to pass 7.4 on Windows. Where did that come from? URI builder tests. Oh, on Linux. Okay. So I'm going to grab the workflow that I had over here. And I'm going to just completely swap that workflow over. Is it a private repo? No, public repo. Feel free to jump in and do anything you want to do with testing wise. Fully appreciate anything that you might want to add or do or change. These are just all parts of packages that I've been working on and I've been keeping for a while. And I've been meaning to upgrade. part of all of these kind of combine to build this kind of PHP SDK. But I'm pretty sure my Slim package doesn't require any of it, which is fine. But the PHP SDK library does. That does require the URI builder, all the strategies in Slim, but the URI builder required parameter bag. So it's this, expect a PR. No, please do. I'd love some more PRs. If it means that I don't have to worry as much, then PR away. Have I got any PRs open? No. Ooh. I did work with a PR earlier today. One of my own, obviously. Right, so main, that's going to create a new pull request. I already know they're passing, so I'm not going to wait for that to finish. So we're just going to merge that, confirm the merge, and then we're going to delete the branch. And that means I can come back and create a new release for version 2.0. 2.0.0 PHP support release or version 2 release. There you go. This release drops support for any PHP version under 8.0 and swaps testing framework to pestPHP. All looking good. Go. URI builder should limit to 8. I'm pretty sure that did. URI builder. Did I not do that? I thought I did. I did. Already done. Already done. Right. That is me done, I believe. That is, 2 hours, 2 releases, 2 package upgrades. Then next time, so I think Tuesday, we will look at upgrading HTTP Slim, diving into PSR 18 a little bit more. Maybe we could add some auto discovery so that you don't have to do so much around the building. That might be nice. Yeah. Out of interest, I do have an article on that. Loads of Go stuff. Here we go. Embracing PSRs. I'm going to drop this link in. Feel free to have a read. This is like what I built, why I built it. Just explains the process a little bit more. So feel free to have a read on that one. But for now, that is me done. I will catch you all on Tuesday. Thank you for tuning in and good night.